Have you been putting off that dream fishing trip to Alaska because of cost, or you just don't know where to start? If so, this video will give you some great tips on how to keep your costs low and also how to find and catch salmon on your Alaskan fishing road trip. This adventure, I flew into Anchorage, Alaska during the last week of July and was met there by my son Mark. If you need a car, rental cars are easy to come by either at the airport or in town. You don't need a four-wheel drive to drive the roads in Alaska, at least not the ones that we're going on. Our goal for this trip was to drive down to Seward, which if you drive it direct is about 2 hours, but it's an easy drive with lots of stops along the way, so we're not going to rush it. The road that we're on is called the Seward Highway, or 1. The water to our right is called Turnagain Arm and can get a tidal variation of up to 35 feet in a day. At Turnagain Arm, we're going to take a detour and take the road to Whittier, which will also take us by the Portage Glacier. On the road to Whittier, you'll get to go through a tunnel that is 2.5 miles long. The tunnel is one way and changes directions every half hour. If you notice in the middle, there's a set of railroad tracks. And as a matter of fact, we had a half-mile long train directly behind us. Just a tip, you want to make sure you have plenty of gas in your vehicle before you go through that tunnel. Whittier is on Prince William Sound. It is a major port for this area, even though it only has 214 full-time residents. Salmon outnumber the people by about 1,000,000 to 1 in this area. You even find them in the marina. Almost everyone in town lives up the hill from the boat ramp at Baggage Towers. Check out that beautiful waterfall behind the building. After our detour into Whittier, it was now time to jump back on 1 and head over to our next destination, Cooper's Landing, for some world-class salmon fishing on the Kenai River and the Russian River. This is one of the more popular places in Alaska to fish, so be prepared for what's locally called combat fishing or carnival fishing. Because of the crowds, this is one of the more regulated areas to fish too. When this video was produced, here are some of the rules for fishing on the Kenai and the Russian River. First off, you can only use fly fishing equipment, meaning you have to use a fly. And that fly can be no larger than a size 2 hook, which is about a 3/8 inch gap between the hook shank and the point. Now you can use these flies on spinning tackle, but to cast those you have to use a weight. And that weight has to be at least 18 inches away from the head of the fly. Any closer than that and you can get a violation. Popular flies to use in this area, the top ones here in this picture, called the coho flies. They can be purchased either in Anchorage or locally. The bottom two are called salmon beadhead flies, and those also will produce fish. The technique to catch salmon in many of the streams and rivers in Alaska is the same. You want to take and cast slightly upstream from where you think either the fish are, or if you are sight fishing, where you see the fish. The fish at this stage, being they're in the streams, are not actively feeding, but what they are doing is that they're swimming upstream, and the whole time they're doing that, they have their mouths open. And what you're trying to do is to drag your fly right in front of the fish so that as you bring it across, as it opens up its mouth, you take and you hook it in the mouth, and that's how you hook up your salmon. Salmon, as they move upstream, will always be very close to the bottom, so be sure to have enough weight to keep your fly in that area. On water that is like 1 to 3 foot, maybe a half an ounce will be fine, but in deeper water, sometimes it could reach up to 8 feet. You may need a couple of ounces. The most popular colors in flies are pink and purple. Another strategy used by some very successful local fishermen that I talked to was to take a number 2 streamer hook and tie a very short piece of brown yarn to the hook instead of using the traditional colors of pink and purple. The fishermen felt that the pink and purple would spook fish, and where a piece of brown yarn would look like something more natural as it moved through the water column at them. The other thing too is that you can't fish with a bare hook, so there has to be some type of fly tying material on that hook to qualify as legal in the Russian and the Kenai rivers. Most fishermen clean their fish right on the streams where they catch them for 2 reasons. The first reason, it gets rid of all the scraps and actually adds back to the cycle of life by putting the carcasses back into the stream. It adds nutrients for the next generation. The second reason is to avoid having scraps of meat up on the bank, which would attract bears, which could be a bad situation. You can spend a lot of time in this area, and we use the U.S. Forest Service campground at the Russian River as our base camp. You can find additional lodging and also private campgrounds in Cooper's Landing, which is just about a mile outside of the park. Even if you don't camp at the U.S. Forest Service Russian River campground, you can go in under a day pass, which at the time that I was there was $11, and you can go down to the Grayling parking area, and then from there get the boardwalk down to the river. And now it's time for a very important public service announcement. In Alaska, wherever you find fish, you're going to find bears. And to keep both you and the bears happy, here are a couple of general rules to follow. Whenever you're going through the woods, talk or make noise as you go. Never walk alone. Walk in a group of people if possible. Keep your food in cars or in bear-proof containers. Avoid early morning or twilight walks in the woods or along streams. And finally, have bear spray or some other form of protection. To continue on our journey, we need to leave Cooper's Landing and backtrack on 1 till we hit Highway 9, which then becomes the Seward Highway. Just south of the intersection of 1 and 9 is the small town of Moose Pass. Moose Pass is known for its roadside water-powered grinding stone, along with its International Bush Pilot Training School, and the area has some great trout and dolly varden fishing. 8 miles south of Moose Pass on the Seward Highway, you'll find an Alaskan treasure, the Irby Knife Shop, run by the Campbell family. This shop has made custom knives for the average sportsman, world leaders, and rock star royalty. Plus, the shop offers local treasures that are carried on consignment. We're ready now for our final push into Seward, Alaska. Seward offers many angling opportunities, from fishing the banks of Resurrection Bay for salmon to fishing the creeks for dolly varden. At City Harbor Dock, you can arrange for a commercial charter to go after halibut, rockfish, or salmon. In late July and into August, you have the opportunity to catch all 5 types of salmon from the banks of the Resurrection Bay. My favorite way to fish for salmon, trout, or dolly varden in this area is with a fly rod. Give the fly action. I used short little strips, and then when I felt resistance, I lifted the rod to set the hook. For this trip, I had to pack light, so I was only able to bring 1 fly rod and 1 spinning rod. The fly rod that I brought was a 7-weight. 7-weight gives you enough backbone to handle most salmon in this area, but also is light enough to make the fight fun when you're going after trout and dolly varden. The best producing fly on this trip was one that I tied that I named a Salmonator, and it's nothing more than a pink shad dart on steroids. Just take pink chenille on a number 2 streamer hook, and then use some pink or fuchsia marabou as a tail. Matter of fact, the tail on this one, I ran out of material and I had to go to Walmart in the craft center to find some material that I could use to finish up my flies. Last but not least is the world's smallest dolly varden ever caught on a fly. In Seward on the Resurrection Bay, another popular way of catching salmon is with spinning tackle. I'm using a 7-foot long medium action spinning rod with a 4000 class reel with 8-pound Power Pro and 30-pound fluorocarbon leader. My favorite lure of the trip was the one on the bottom, which was a number 6 bang tail lure. The other popular lures that people like are the Vibrex. If you work up an appetite while you're fishing, there's a virtual smorgasbord of free food out there along the stream, including blueberries, fireweed, and salmon berries. In Seward, you'll find many lodging options, including a beautiful campground that is right on Resurrection Bay. There is a nice downtown district that features several tackle shops, restaurants, and gift shops. Sights to see in Seward include the start of the Iditarod Trail, the aquarium, and just outside of town, the Exit Glacier. Thanks for watching and joining us on this adventure. Don't miss a trip. Subscribe to my channel. An invaluable source of information on this trip was a book I purchased up in Alaska called The Roadside Angler's Guide, Alaska's Top Road Accessible Waters. I highly recommend it to you to help you in planning your trip. Additionally, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game has some great information on their website too.